so many people dealing with cancers and obesity and depression. Why is it that so many people are suffering, and how do we shift this paradigm?
Well, there's a number of reasons. First of all, the way people are living their lifestyle. You have the introduction of the fast food industry, introduction of food-like substances that aren't really food. You know, you basically find them in the middle of your grocery store, in packages and in cans and in boxes, and it's not real food. It's food-like, and so individuals are absolutely living on poor nutrition. Then you have the toxicity of the environment. You have electronic toxicity, the carbon dioxide, the carbon monoxide. And so there's a tremendous amount of toxicity that we're living in on a regular basis. And then you have the mental toxicity that comes from corporate media that's always blasting the lowest common denominator of the human experience into everyone's living room on a regular basis. Whatever the worst thing that has happened on the planet, we get that particular news in regular dosages. And so this provides the context for people to produce toxic chemicals because you have poor nutrition, you have poor thinking, toxicity, so fear, doubt, worry produce toxic chemicals that flow through the body temple, which creates a condition for a disease. So then we have a sick care system. We don't really have a health care system. We have a sick care system where doctors and insurance companies are basically treating symptoms but aren't really getting to root causes. In many cases, aren't dealing with the whole person. They're dealing with the symptom, by which they then give a drug, which then has a side effect. And so it keeps on spinning. More toxicity, more disease, more ill health. An individual has to be very courageous and very strong to pull out of that and begin to do spiritual work, mental work, nutritional work, and physical work to develop a level of strength to withstand the toxic environment and to create the condition for wholeness and health. You have to be eternally vigilant. You have to have a way of living. You have to have a way of thinking. You have to have a way of eating. You have to have a way of exercising so that you're not only preventing the toxicity from taking you down, but you're also building up your immune system, and you're building up your spiritual immune system so that you can live a healthy and whole life, pulled by a vision of why you took a human incarnation in the first place. You didn't take a human incarnation to become a couch potato, eat potato chips, and watch TV. We took a human incarnation because we have gifts and talents and capacities to express. And if one isn't living that life, then again, your gifts will turn on you, become angry, and create the condition for disease.
I heard the story when you accepted this kind of purpose for your life. Your neck cracked back into, right? So that's a big part of it, is aligning with your purpose.
Yeah, that was a time in my life in which I was resisting the next stage of my unfoldment. I was the director of a prayer ministry. I was doing workshops. I was on the faculty of the university. I was seeing clients every day. I was a spiritual practitioner. And I thought that was enough. But the inner guidance and the inner voice was telling me I was to do something else. I was to start a community. I was resisting the next stage of my unfoldment. I really didn't want to do that on a surface level. And I can remember during that time of my life, I had a crook in my neck a lot. And I would go to the chiropractor and get it adjusted. In a very short period of time, it would be stuck again. I didn't have full rotation to my right. And the moment I surrendered to the next stage of my unfoldment, my neck cracked into place. And I never had to go back to a chiropractor for that particular thing again. It was like the resistance to the dream that was trying to be birthed in me was showing up physically in my body temple. And when I gave up the resistance, the body temple came into alignment.
You talk about fear and stress and worry. How do we know for sure that life is for us and never against us when we're, a disease shows up, or we're depressed, or we're in pain and suffering? How do we get back to that total faith?
Yeah. Life is alive, and it's progressive, and it's always seeking to express itself. And when there's a hindrance in thought or in emotions, an emotional body, mental body, it coagulates and can become a dis-ease, something that's out of ease. But it's always seeking to express. So if there's a blockage, it's still going to express, but it'll express as a condition that's not to our liking, that calls our attention to look at it. If there's pain, the body's telling you there's something up here. What's behind this pain? If it's emotional pain, there might be some depth of forgiveness we have to get to. If it's physical pain, there might be a blockage. But what I know for sure, based on my own spiritual awakenings that have occurred, and that life never contradicts itself. It never works against itself. It never compromises itself. It's always working on its own behalf. You take a seed and plant it in the soil, and when that seed begins to sprout, if you turn that seed upside down and you watch it with one of those cameras, in a very short period of time, it will turn itself back up and starts to go towards the light. It's an indication that the life presence in that seed is going to go for itself. It's going to go for its own unfoldment. I believe and feel that that life essence is within all of us. It's always working on our behalf. It's never working against us. And so even if our life is turned upside down, as we begin to participate in our own healing and our own expanded awareness, then we'll be turned right side up, so to speak. Our life can come back into a level of congruence. We can begin to share why we've come to the planet. The body temple will begin to shift, begin to regenerate, begin to rejuvenate when there's an alignment with thought, alignment with purpose, and all the things we talked about a little bit earlier.
You talk about we have the power to make our own prognosis. I want to just stop that cycle of going to the doctor. They tell you one thing, you spiral in fear, and you just end up on medication the rest of your life. Right. So how do we make our own prognosis no matter what the diagnosis?
Some of the things that I tell people when they come to me with particular issues, and they'll tell me they just come back from the doctor, they have a diagnosis, and they have a prognosis. And I always remind them, the doctor can give you a diagnosis, but the prognosis is between you and God, or you and life, you and the universe, you and your own mind. You have to determine your own prognosis. So you have to break free. So I remind them that MD doesn't just stand for medical doctor. Sometimes it stands for minor deity. And so people put their whole, they give their whole authority to a minor deity that's telling them what's going to happen with their body. They believe it, and then based on that belief, they just basically give in to the prognosis. So I work with people to show them they don't have to do that. They can basically begin to tell their body, talk to their cells, change their habits, change their point of view, change their nutrition, change their way of thinking, and begin to come up with a whole nother prognosis. They can begin to say, you know what, my body's getting stronger and stronger every day. The blood that's flowing through my veins is becoming more and more pure. And one thing for sure, that won't hurt you. There'll be some kind of endorphins that shoot through the body temple, some kind of tonic chemicals that shoot through the body temple as you elevate your mood and shift your attitude, which is only going to increase the immune system, which is only going to give you a fighting chance to overcome or transcend whatever the issue is. And so I think we give too much authority to someone in a white coat. I remember one time someone came in and they were really crying because they had received a tremendous diagnosis and prognosis, and the doctor said. So I said, I'll be right back. And I went out and I got a white coat and put it on. I put my name tag on it. It said Dr. Michael Beckwith. And I came in, I said, I'm Dr. Michael Beckwith. And I want you to know that your life is about to get better and better and better. You've had a tremendous wake-up call about tremendous habits that you have had for many, many years. You're about to break that cycle of those bad habits, and you're going to watch your body change. You're going to watch yourself come into a greater sense of fulfillment. And then I got a prescription tablet, and I said, every day, this is what I want you to say to yourself. This is what I want you to read. This is what I want you to not eat. This is what I want you to eat. Come see me in 30 days and tell me how you feel, you know. And she went from crying to just laughing because she realized that she had given her power away and that she had given up her whole authority to work with herself. It doesn't mean you don't go to a doctor. It doesn't mean you don't follow good medical advice. However, you are your own authority. You have to go within. You have to ask empowering questions. You have to look and see what you need to change in your life. And you can watch as your life begins to change. But if you just give yourself over to an external authority figure, you basically become a victim twice. A victim to the condition and the diagnosis, and now you become a victim to an authority figure telling you about what's going to happen in your life. So I try to elevate people out of victimhood into taking more dominion over their own awareness.
And some doctors would say this is false hope, that's unethical. But I think it's unethical that doctors say you have 3 to 6 weeks to live or there's nothing we can do. How can we use the placebo effect in a positive way?
Absolutely. I think that the placebo effect has been used for so many years and shown to be quite effective. And our friend Joe Dispenza with his new book really goes into detail about how that works and the blind and double-blind research projects around that. And it's not going to hurt to tell somebody they're going to have a good day. It's going to get better. You can do this. It's not going to hurt for that. Again, you don't discount sound medical advice, but it's kind of unethical to put fear and doubt in a person's mind rather than hope and possibility. Hope and possibility can now be measured vibrationally with biofeedback. You can actually see when someone is in a hopeful state, a joyful state, the kind of thoughts that are emitting, the kind of chemicals that are going through the body temple. And you can see when someone's in a depressed state, someone's in a fear state, and how there's a constriction around blood pressure goes up, toxic chemicals flow. And so there's nothing wrong with someone in authority saying it's possible that this can be healed. This is possible. Let's go for the possibility. You see, that's ethics, to hang in the possibility.
I love when you kind of mention it a couple times. You say tonic versus toxic thoughts and prophetic versus pathetic voice conversation. Tell me how those relate to healing.
Oh, absolutely. Individuals sometimes have a habit of calling their own pity party. And they have the pathetic voices of shame and blame and fear and doubt and worry and the projection of worst-case scenarios into the future. And you can actually begin to prophesy over your own life. Rather than having the voice of the pathetic, you can begin to be the voice of the prophetic. You begin to prophesy. You begin to think about best-case scenarios. What if my body heals? What if I regenerate new brain cells? What if? You can begin to create a whole what-if scenario in your mind so that instead of going down the track of worst-case scenarios, which many people have trained themselves to do, not just with the healing of the body temple, but in every area of their life. Something bad happens, their mind just spins off into what is the worst thing that could happen based on what just happened. And they can stop. And they can say, what is the best thing that could happen? And they can go on that track. It's just as easy. And as you go on that track, then tonic thoughts produce tonic chemicals. Toxic thoughts produce toxic chemicals. And so you'll have cortisol from worry, and you have wonderful endorphins from hope and joy and gratitude. It's an expansion of our awareness so that we're living in an expanded choice. And oftentimes, an authority takes away the person's choice. And what we want to do is always give a person choice. And we don't have an attachment to an outcome, but the outcome can now form itself based on tonic thoughts rather than on toxicity.
How is that? There's children with disease that nobody can explain, and they didn't have buildup of 50 years of toxic thoughts. They're these innocent kids that come in with these conditions. How does fate and destiny and life path fit in? How do we just surrender and be like, it's about quality of life rather than length of life?
Yeah, quality of life is very important, but there's a couple of issues around this. One, today, a baby that's being born is affected with tremendous, more toxins than ever than a mother 25, 30 years ago. Just the environment, just what the mother is breathing, just what the mother is eating. The placenta is not protecting the baby from all of those toxins. So now many of the babies that are being born, when the blood is analyzed, there's already toxins there. And they haven't even had a year on the planet. So on one level, our environment is so polluted that it's already affecting the unborn. On another level, individuals come into the planet, and many of them come into the planet because they know they're going to go through some stuff, and they're coming to up-level the awareness of the species. So we don't look at it like, well, this person was born with this disease and that kid was born with that disease, what's wrong? Many of these individuals are coming with very special gifts. Many are coming with the ability to raise the compassion in a family. Many groups of people come to raise the compassion of the entire species. So what looks like tragedy and what looks like total negativity, oppression, wars, these individuals didn't arrive by accident, and it's not necessarily just karma. They actually are arriving in a situation where they are lifting the race by going through particular issues. I teach that, there are basically 4 windows of manifestation of how we can look at a thing and why it exists. The first window is the basic metaphysical window. People experience their thinking. It's window number 1, and people are really kind of adept at that window, but they don't understand there's 3 other windows. The second window is our lessons. That is, when you begin to grow spiritually, your soul brings lessons into your life that help you activate potential. Some of those lessons are not fun. And so it's not that you've done something wrong. You've actually done something right. You've said, I'm going to go for this. So therefore, the challenges necessary for you to develop your inner power come. And those challenges, when you're going through it, don't look good. But in hindsight, you look back at your life and you'll say, if that challenge hadn't come, if that particular issue hasn't come into my life, I wouldn't be who I am today. That's the second window, the lessons we're learning. The third window is blessings, where people arrive on the planet and they're actually bringing a blessing, which through what appears to be a negative circumstance, whether it be a disease, whether it be some kind of abuse, whether it be some kind of Holocaust, whether it's a Vietnamese Holocaust or an African Holocaust, or a Jewish Holocaust. There's people that arrive that come to the planet to actually raise the vibration of the planet. And then the fourth window is the group think, race consciousness. And as long as there are people who believe in separation, disease, scarcity, not enoughness, as long as those thought forms are being emitted, someone will be victimized by those thoughts and experience them until they become dissolved or transmuted. So those are 4 windows by which you can look at one thing. And we don't judge by appearances. We don't know. I can't tell you, what window that person is operating through. Is it their thinking? Are they learning a lesson? Are they bringing a blessing? Or have they picked up on the prevailing thoughts? Or is it a combination? You see, so it's not real simple, but it is real.
With all these toxins in our environment, our air, our food, and our water, a lot of people can't afford organic food. It's hard for a lot of people to afford healers or clean water or whatever it is. So how can that part of society thrive?
The way I look at it is the things that are necessary for us to eat, most people can afford that. What they can't afford is the care that they're going to have to receive by eating the fast foods, even though it's very cheap. So if they don't pay a little bit extra for an organic apple or an orange or vegetables, they're going to be paying later when they have arthritis and rheumatism, diabetes, high blood pressure, Alzheimer's. They're going to pay somewhere. So you're deciding, so when you're looking at, should I eat this salad or should I eat this beef sandwich that has antibiotics in it, which means anti-life, antibiotics, which has all manner of bacteria and death. You know, one may be cheaper than the other, but if I continue to eat the one that has death in it, then eventually I'm going to create a condition which I'm going to have to be off of work. I'm going to have to go to the doctor. I'm going to have to get pharmaceutical pills. I'm going to have to deal with the side effects. I'm going to have to be off of work. I'm going to have to go to the doctor. So I'm going to pay somewhere. So I'd rather pay, even though it may be seem to be a little bit more expensive, to drink good water. I'd rather pay now to eat as good as I possibly can. I'd rather pay now by walking around the block and doing some exercise with my body temple. I'd rather pay now rather than pay later. But your average person can get some apples and get some kale. You know, we grew up eating kale before it was popular. So when suddenly it became a health food, it's like, when did kale become a health? When did it become that was just what we had for dinner. Now it's like kale, you know. But an individual can get kale and get collard greens. They can get greens, you know. They can juice it, drink good water, you know. Just add that to your diet. Even if you're addicted to other stuff, begin to add good stuff little by little by little, and take out the sugars and the white flours little by little by little. Then you notice that you're eating more healthy than not, and then after a while your taste buds will change, and you'll actually start to crave for that which is life-giving, and you'll start to repel that which is death. You see, so it's little by little.
Affirmative prayer. Obviously, you run, a congregation, and prayer and faith is part of your everyday life. What is prayer, and what is the most effective way to pray?
I describe prayer as touching reality without trying to get anything from it. And what I mean by that is there's a sense of order and harmony and perfection within us already. Just as within every acorn, there's an oak tree waiting to express itself. There's an order and a harmony within us. There's a perfect spiritual idea. So prayer is actually getting in touch with that idea and becoming aware of it and having an inner realization about that. And when you have a realization about it, it begins to affect your perception, begins to affect everything about you. And then when we say that the prayer is answered, that means that your vibration is now vibrating at the level of the answer. And then what comes into your life is a vibrational match to that particular prayer. So affirmative prayer is, life is affirmative. Life is always affirming itself. So we are actually coming into a way of affirming that which is true. I'm talking about spiritual, talking about reality. I'm talking with the capital R, not small r. I'm talking about that which is forever about us, affirming that, having an awareness about that, and then it unfolds in our life. As opposed to begging or beseeching a reluctant deity that's supposedly living outside of ourselves, which was the immature, myopic perception of a God. God's out there, God's mean, God has chosen people, God's going to get you. If you're bad, God's going to send you to a place called hell. You know, we've matured, at least many people have matured out of that perception of begging. And now, instead of begging for God to do something, we're coming into a communion with God, you see. We're communing with, and when I speak of the word God, I'm not speaking of a man in the sky, of course. It's not an anthropomorphic. It's a presence that's never an absence. We're communing with this presence of love and of beauty and intelligence, and it begins to be active in us. There's more creativity that flows through us. There's more brilliance. There's more flowing intelligence. There's more wisdom. And all of the other qualities flow as well. And so that would be answered prayer, you see. The presence of God can only do for us what it can do through us and as us. So we graduate from an external God, and we come into an awareness that, as the saying goes, the uppermost God and the innermost God is the same God. You see, that which surrounds us is also in us.
I'm fascinated by the stories of healings that you've encountered and also spontaneous remissions when people in the hospital, they're on their way out and they listen to your sermons.
I'm always enthused by remissions and by healings in which the door was closed, the lights were out, and there was just no hope. And then, for whatever reason, there was a regeneration. There's so many of them in my mind, being here at Agape for over 30 years. So many. I can remember a woman who asked the class to pray for her to be placed higher on the kidney transplant list. And so I asked her, why don't we try to heal the kidneys you have? And she said, no. The doctors say this is a very rare disease. They've never seen anyone heal from it. She said, I'm going to need a kidney transplant. I said, okay. Why don't we try to heal the kidneys that you have? And she argued with me. She wouldn't go for it. So I remember this story about waiting by Alan Watts. And I said, listen, while we're waiting for your kidney transplant, why don't we see what we can do? And she went for it. So I had the class to raise their hands. I said, how many of you today woke up and gave thanks that your kidneys were working? And no one raised their hand. I said, this is what I want you to do. Every time you go to the restroom, I want you to give thanks that your kidneys are working, and I want you to pray for Donna. Donna, this is what I want you to do. I want you to look at all the other organs in your body that are working, and I want you to give thanks that they work. And I want you to read, and I gave her something to read in this book, The Science of Mind and Spirit textbook, on physical health, healing, and there was a special section on kidneys. I said, I want you to read this every day while you're giving thanks for the rest of your body parts working, so that you can have the possibility of healing. It may or may not work. I don't have any attachment to this. So about 30 days later, we meet because they have to take their oral exams, and she wants to share, and she says to us that her kidneys spontaneously started working. And the doctors wanted to do a minor surgery to see why, but she didn't let them. Now that was at least 10, 12 years ago. She's still here at Agape. Her kidneys are still working. She got on the health bandwagon and lost some weight. I mean, she didn't just stay where she was. She actually got very more inspired to get into healthy eating and healthy living. But her kidneys are still working. We don't know why. I mean, we do know why, but we don't know why. So she didn't need a kidney transplant. I can remember a friend of mine, 18 years ago. He comes up to me in line. He's nervous. He's scared. Reverend Michael, the doctors say I have colon cancer. They tell me I have a maximum of 6 months to live. And that's when I said, listen, the doctors can give you a diagnosis. The prognosis is up to you. Stop it. You know, I was very stern with him. And he was shocked because he was looking for more, what he considered compassion, me to hug him and cry with him and say, see you later, we'll prepare for your memorial service or something. And I said, stop. You determine your prognosis. And he kind of woke up, and he just passed 18 years. He had 6 months. He lived 17, 18 years longer. Now, again, it wasn't just magic. He did spiritual work on himself. He changed his diet. He began to put less toxins in his body. He cleaned up his body. I mean, so it wasn't just like magic. It was prayer. But his mind shifted from, I got 6 months and I'm out of here, to, oh, I have a say in this. He just passed over this year. This was in Dayton, Ohio. The woman was actually in a coma. She had a brain cancer. And the doctor told her family to come see her because this was her last, pretty much her last night that she was going to be alive to come say goodbye. So the family went to say goodbye to her and this type of thing. And one lady who was a spiritual practitioner went in and prayed for her. And we prayed for her from quote unquote a distance. And then she put on the CD. The CD was I Found a Deeper Love, a CD that Ricky and I did many years ago. Ricky singing, of course. And put it on repeat. And it played all day and all night. The lady woke up, looked around, got out of bed, and went home. And never died. She was fine, and the doctors have no explanation for it, but we know that there was prayer, there was the CD, and we just held the space. And I haven't checked in lately, but I think she's still alive. That was years ago. I mean, that CD was created in the 90s.
If you're praying for someone else, vibrationally, spiritually, how do you see prayer working?
Well, there's two levels. There's mental prayer and there's spiritual prayer. Mental prayer is I can mentally see you whole. I can mentally see your body. I can see it surrounded by light. I can begin to see the light surrounding every cell of your body temple. I begin to see every cell of your body temple receiving new information from this light, giving it permission to heal itself, to come into a state of coherence. So that's visualization. That's mental prayer. Spiritual prayer is I have a realization that you're already whole. And because on a subatomic level and on a spiritual level, we're not separate. As I know the truth about you, I'm actually knowing the truth about myself called you. And so as I'm lifted up in this frequency, then something happens where you are as I hold you in my awareness. It's a non-local, non-linear healing. It has nothing to do with time or space, distance, proximity to each other. You can be on the other side of the world, and I can sit and I can be aware of you, and I can be aware that right where you are, there is wholeness. I can do it mentally by seeing the perfection, and I can do it spiritually by having an awareness that you're already whole. Presently, I'm working with an individual now whose body has cancer, and we have a group of people that are working with him every morning. And the prognosis from some time ago was he's kind of not supposed to be here right now. And I lead the group in both levels of prayer. I have everybody close their eyes and visualize, see the body temple whole, see the cells operating perfectly, see the body regenerating mentally. And then I bring everybody into a level of coherence in which we spiritually become aware that he's already whole. And we take our hands off of it, no attachment to an outcome, and so it is, amen, and we go about our day. So there's both. There's both.
If a woman named Becky had cancer and came to you, how would you teach her to pray?
If Becky came to me and Becky had the condition of cancer, I would first of all, I would pray for her and have her lean on my belief about her. Depending on how frail she was and how she came in, she may not have the strength to believe it because a minor deity may have told her some prognosis. So I would have her lean on my belief about the possibility of wholeness and the possibility of a good and quality life, And then I would teach her how to pray for herself. I would give her some short, pithy, very powerful affirmations to say on a regular basis. I would have her read about health regularly and healing. I would have her read about all of the people who had spontaneous remissions so that her belief system starts to go more towards a best case scenario rather than worst case scenarios. And then we would examine, what is she doing that's toxic in her life? Is there resentment? Is there animosity? Is there rancor? Is there unforgiveness that needs to occur in her life? We would look at the toxicity of those thoughts. We would look at the toxicity of what she puts in her body. Is she flooding her body with sugar, which is a drug that kills? Is she flooding her body with inert white flour, which has no nutritional value? Is she flooding her body with non-nutritional pastas? Is she flooding her body with things that aren't going to really create the condition for health? So we would look at, the toxicity of her daily life. Does she walk anywhere? Is she always in her car? Is she always in a building and never going outside and having her feet touch the ground and let Mother Earth begin to speak to her? Or is she always in an office? Is she always in a car? Does she go outside? Does she go to nature? Does she go to the beach? Does she go to the mountains? Does she take deep breath? You see. And so we see all the areas of toxicity, from the food, the exercise, the deep breath, what she's saying to herself and about herself, and the prayer. All of this is vitally important. And after a while, she can look at herself and see, I'm getting ready to go down a toxic road here. This is not going to be a good ending to this story. You know what I mean? This is not going to be good for the gut, the digestive system. It's not going to be good for my immune system. It's not going to be good, for anything but just a momentary taste bud of something that you can get when you bite into a fresh peach, So I would look at all of those areas with her, not just one, even though I've seen the power of prayer work with people, and the power of choice when a person has become resolute, even without changing any of the structures, and watch healings happen. But I still like to approach the whole system. Yeah.
And that's why it's a community, where two more are gathered. It just heightens the power of it. And then also it's important for people to, not be around people that are putting fearful thoughts in their head, right?
This is all very important. You said two very powerful things. One, where two or more are gathered. Whenever there's agreement, and there's agreement on two levels. One, if you get with somebody that can agree with you that it's possible, it's just possible to live a quality life. It's possible for wholeness to reveal itself. You begin to protect your mind from the naysayers, and you come into an agreement. Now, the other level of two or more gathered is when your conscious mind and your subconscious mind agree, two or more gathered, then the superconscious mind takes over. So when you consciously are affirming wholeness, and then subconsciously you start to believe it, then the superconscious mind, your whole mind, your Christ mind, your oversoul mind, can now begin to come onto the scene. So that's how I interpret that particular phrase. It's agreeing with another individual, then it's also making sure that your conscious mind and your subconscious mind are together. So you don't want to consciously say, oh, I'm whole. But inside, on a subconscious level, you really don't believe that. So you have to do a little bit of work to make sure that on a subconscious level, you believe that. Just like right now, subconsciously, you're not beating your heart. You're not consciously beat, 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 beat. You'd be dead after a while. You'd get tired. Oh, I can't keep doing this. But on the subconscious level, those systems are operating. Blood is circulating through the body. Oxygen is being extracted from the air. The liver's purifying. The kidneys are purifying. So many things are going on the subconscious level. So you have a kind of an agreement with yourself to stay alive, but you're not consciously thinking about it. So in that same way, we want to develop the subconscious tendencies towards a belief in wholeness and healing and prosperity and all of these qualities. So we're not thinking about it as much. It's just a part of our life, you see. And so the work we do on our attitude that changes our character allows for that to be conscious, subconscious, in agreement.
You say that to move out of victimhood, you have to embrace forgiveness, and all forgiveness is self-forgiveness. Can you talk about forgiveness and healing?
Forgiveness is extremely important. Every spiritual path, every authentic spiritual path has some mention or some teaching around forgiveness. I always say that all forgiveness is self-forgiveness, because the resentment I may hold towards another, or the unforgiveness, or the rancor, or the resentment, all of those thoughts are happening within me. Even if someone did me wrong, said something about me, gossiped about me, stole something from me, abused me, did something, I still have those thoughts. Those thoughts are affecting me. They're affecting my body temple. They're affecting my blood chemistry. They're affecting everything. So when I begin to forgive the so-called other person, I'm releasing rancor, resentment, animosity. I'm releasing all that unforgiveness so that I'm actually forgiving myself. Now, that doesn't necessarily let the other person off the hook for whatever they did or didn't do or should have done or should not have done. It has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with me, so that I'm clear. I have clarity, so that when I hear their name, I'm not triggered. When I hear something about them, good or bad, I'm clean inside. You get to the point where you actually wish an individual well that may have done harm to you or tried to do harm to you. That means you're clean inside. And now here's an understanding that I teach. If you're holding someone hostage with unforgiveness and you say to yourself, you know, this person did me wrong, they owe me an apology, they need to make amends, they owe me something, my life would be a lot better if they hadn't done that, then what you're saying is, I'm lacking something based on that person. Now, if you're saying you're lacking something, then that shows up in your life. The law will operate on that thought as lack, and debt will come into your life. Lack and scarcity will come into your life experience, because you're telling the universe, somebody owes me something, therefore I don't have anything. Now, spiritually, you have everything. But if you hold yourself hostage to, I don't have this because of this person, the universe says, you're right, you don't have this. And here comes debt. Here comes scarcity. Here comes lack. That's a law. It has nothing to do with personal. It's not personal. It's just how you're operating with your own mind. So if a person is in debt, if a person is in dis-ease, go to the heart of forgiveness, see where you're holding yourself hostage, and let go of those toxic thoughts. Go into the dungeon and release the demons of hostility. Set them free so that you can be free.
So what is your one takeaway message?
So it's all possible. It doesn't mean it happens for everybody, but it's possible, you know. So we hang in the possibility. We hang in the possibility.